So once again, I'm at Mount Sugarloaf, and this is a bit different than down near the waterfalls. So what we have here is that the trees are only probably about 10 meters tall. So they're not as tall as down below because, well, this is the top of the peak. So it's also a lot drier. And why would it be a lot drier? Okay, we'll focus on the water first. Okay, it's a lot drier because water likes to flow from high to low. So gravity, so the water is being sucked. Although we do have capillary action in the soil that retains some water, any excess is actually drained off. And during summer, this water would be evaporated off. So that will reduce the water retention substantially. So that's why we have water. And also when it rains, the area that the rain hits is not as much as down low because you do have this area here is basically it. So you got a square. So it's basically all the water that hits that. But when you've got a high elevation, you need to take into account, so this is a bit high there, you need to take into account is that water that hits there will percolate. Now, so water that hits here, because of the high elevation, it's flowing this way. So you have some excess going from here to here. So that means there is an increase in water flowing into this area. So that's basically the way it works. And overall, because this is the highest point, so here's the highest point, just over there, that would receive the less water than all of the surrounding areas. Okay, as for soil, the soils around here are actually quite thin because of erosion. So the soils will be moving from this path here down slope. They would be accumulating down slope, and in the valleys is where the area of accumulation is greatest for this area. Then when it gets into the valleys, the water and mostly water, but there is some wind, will be transporting that soil along the river course down to lower elevations and eventually into the ocean where it goes to continental slopes. So, wow, it looks so beautiful today. Okay, so that's why there's thin soils. Now there will be some accumulation, but it's mostly just weathering. And any accumulation of soils will be wind blown because, as you can see, there's no higher points in which soil can come from a higher point to a lower point. So this is the highest point, and then you've got the lowest point. So all this soil is getting transported to the lowest point. So that's why the soils are thin. And also because of the lack of water, this is the driest point. So there's also wind. Wind would blow the dry soil away, off and down into the valley down below. Now the winds could blow, if it's strong enough, from that mountain over there all the way to here, but I would say it's highly unlikely that's going to happen. So, and also, why are the trees so small? Well, because of those two factors. There's not as much water, and the soil is quite thin. And there is another factor. Because of those two, the weathering rates will be a lot less because there is not as much water. So there will be more rock in the soil. And nutrient retention. So when there is rain, it would be taking nutrients down to the lower valleys. So you'll probably see that the valleys are actually a lot more intense in nutrients, so that's where the agriculture is. There wouldn't be any agriculture here because of the nature of it. Have a look at it. It's actually quite rocky. And also we have a lot of ions and probably a lot of aluminium left over, which is quite toxic to a lot of lava plants. So if you go down into the valley, you'll find that there's a thicker soil and you won't be seeing this rock. And because it's drier, when we were down near the waterfall, we saw a lot of moss and lichen on the actual trees, but we don't see that here because it's just too dry. It's not the environment that they like to live in. Okay, so that's basically why this is a lot drier. The trees are a lot smaller, and probably also because it's a lot drier, the number of species, so the diversity is a lot lower. When I was down in the valley near the waterfall, there are quite a lot of birds. We saw a lyrebird down there as well, and wow, that's iron indurated rock. Okay, so yep, there were a lot of birds. But just listen to it. Can you hear anything? All I can hear is cows in the valley. Especially down there. I hear some birds, but they're pretty far away. There's one bird. But I just don't hear much wildlife. So, a lot of these plants are probably high in toxins. Eucalyptus. Even koalas, they wouldn't like to eat this type of eucalyptus because it's too concentrated in, I can't remember the actual element, and it's too dry because of the lack of water. They like to live in places where there's a higher water content and water accumulation, so that means in the valleys. Okay, so that's basically it. You're not going to see much wildlife, but I just like this mountain peak quite a lot. So anyway, that's why I like to go to Mount Sugarloaf. It's actually quiet, not many people come here. But the diversity of plants, I think this is all probably mesmate eucalyptus. There's a lot of rock exposure, but because it's a national park, you're not allowed to touch it. No, you can probably pick up a rock and have a look at it, but that's about it. You can't go smashing anything. I wouldn't recommend that. And got on the path, you got all this highly weathered rock. I'm not going to be able to tell what type of rock it is. You can probably see it's probably sedimentary. Actually, I've looked at a geological map. There's no igneous or metamorphic rock here. So this is all probably Hume Vale Formation. I can't remember exactly which it is. Anyway. Okay, so g'day, and it is midwinter. So today's topic is what you can do in Australia, and one thing you can do is what I'm doing now. It's bushwalking. Obviously you can do that in every country. Obviously there's bush. Some countries like, I don't know, you go to Sudan, probably got desert, you can do desert walking. Obviously you need to take provisions. And then now is winter, so the maximum it's going to get here is probably about 16 degrees Celsius. Pretty cold, but it's nice. And it's a thing that a lot of people like to do, is bushwalk. So, what would you need to take for bushwalking? Well, if you're going long distance, like behind me, there's a mountain range. All the way that way, you can actually walk that way. There's a lot of walking tracks around here, but as you can see, the walking track is pretty bare. So a lot of people do walk on this, and it's pretty well marked. So this is Kinglake National Park, and you're not allowed to camp here, but a lot of places you can camp. Okay, so you take normal things, say tent, backpack, water. It's an ideal thing to take a first aid kit, and ideally take someone else. Now a lot of the trees that we can see, so this is an acacia, and what happens if you've run out of food? Well, we are on a mountain peak here, so there's really not that much in the way of birds or mammals you're going to find here. Most of it's going to be plant life, and as you can see, majority of people probably don't know what, like me, I don't know what species these are. I know you can't eat eucalyptus, but there will be other species in the actual forest that you could do. You can actually make some food. That's why you need probably to know what type of plants you can and cannot touch. And I think this is not as well discovered or even described in Victoria. So maybe I can do a few videos about different plants, different trees, how you can identify them. Like, I haven't even, most of these I don't know what they are. Obviously you can probably try and eat that. So, and how the indigenous people would have actually done this was trial and error. You come to a new area, someone eats something, they die, and they go, yeah, that's off the menu. And someone else eats something, they live, they go, it's not too bad, that's going to be our food. So I would say the indigenous people probably wouldn't have come up to this point. They would have stuck in the valleys where there would have been a lot more variety because it's a lot wetter. And so if you've got tubers or trees or fruits, they will get a lot bigger. Here, as you can see, the stuff is all stunted because of a lack of nutrients and water. So basically there's no real food up here. Although because it's dry, there's a lot of firewood, and it will be a lot easier to actually harvest wood from here, but getting it to where you want is a bit harder. Anyway, let me know in your neck of the woods what you do when you go bushwalking.